Everyone, my name is David Alden St. Pierre. I'm the chair of the Open Space and Recreation Committee. It's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Just so everyone's aware, this is being recorded by BevCam for at least the duration of the presentation. After the presentation is over and then we convene our regular meeting, the BevCam will no longer be recording that, but it is still open to the public. And do you want to start with the presentation?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Chelsea Zakis. I'm the associate planner here in the planning department. I staff the Open Space and Recreation Committee. To start tonight's Open Space and Recreation Committee meeting, we are going to be presenting on the 2022 Open Space and Recreation Plan, which we are in the process of updating. So the presentation will include a period of time dedicated to hearing public feedback and taking questions. As David mentioned, BevCam is broadcasting the presentation live, recording it, and then at 8:30 we'll transition into our regular meeting to cover the rest of our agenda. So just to begin, I'd like to introduce you all to the Open Space and Recreation Committee, made up, oh man, the formatting. The committee here in front of you is a group of outstanding volunteers. They meet monthly to work towards the goals that we are about to talk about for the rest of the night. They have a mission statement. They aim to preserve and maintain and enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Beverly by developing and maintaining an open space plan. The plan identifies and recommends open space acquisitions and identifies other creative strategies to preserve open space based on public input and in consideration of city government policies and action and the city's master plan. Yes, we should. We'll introduce ourselves for the record and roll call.
You want to start down there?
Hi, I'm Wayne Miller.
Allison Dudley, Ward 30 representative.
Greg Sharp, at large.
Charlie Mann, at large.
Dave Alden St. Pierre, still.
And I'm Dave Brewster, representing Ward 1.
Marilyn McCrory, Ward 2.
Todd Callahan, representing Ward 4.
Elizabeth Dunn, representing Ward 6.
Right. So the Open Space and Recreation Committee has a ton of responsibilities, and among them here are preparing and updating the Open Space and Recreation Plan, preparing and maintaining an inventory of open spaces around the city, researching and recommending financing alternatives for acquiring and preserving open space and recreation opportunities, setting the criteria for developing these lists and inventories of spaces, exploring strategies to preserve open space, and advising and recommending other city boards, commissions, and decision makers on open space and recreation related matters. So the Open Space and Recreation Plan itself is a living document that gets updated every 7 years. The plan describes Beverly's community setting, growth and development patterns, and population characteristics. It includes an environmental inventory and analysis, which takes a deep dive into geology, soils, and topography, water resources, vegetation, and environmental challenges. And it ends with a 7-year action plan, which details how we aim to accomplish the community goals that are set in the plan. The plan is important to keep updated for a number of reasons. It reflects the needs and desires of the community. It's used as a tool to guide future development and preservation of open space and recreation areas. It allows us to keep track of accomplishments and make sure that we're following the action plan. And lastly, it is required by the Division of Conservation Services to have an approved and updated open space and recreation plan to receive certain grant funding. And then it gives us bonus points for other state funding opportunities. So one of the reasons I just mentioned as being important to keep the plan updated is to keep track of accomplishments that have been made since the last plan was updated. So here are some examples of accomplishments that are consistent with the goals that were set in the 2015 plan. A conservation restriction was secured for Norwood Pond and Camp Paradise was acquired. The OSRC used grant funding to install wayfinding signage and update trail maps. We began and continue to improve the Greens Hill trails. Pete's Park was completed in 2018. A new trail was just recently approved for Sally Milligan Nature Reserve. We continue to work with local Eagle Scouts on their projects, and we continue to host nature walks and community cleanups. The OSRC continues to support the open space and residential design ordinance, and we continue to maintain a list of priority parcels for open space acquisition and conservation restrictions, and we continue to provide ongoing trail maintenance and repairs. Now, switching gears, oh, the text is so small. Switching gears from the plan to the community engagement process. Many of you might be familiar with PlanBeverly. You all might have been involved in that community engagement process. If not, PlanBeverly is the City of Beverly's master plan that was just recently adopted at the beginning of this year. An entire section of PlanBeverly is dedicated to open space and environment, and you'll find a lot of overlap and connectivity between the other sections of the plan as well, like public facilities and services and mobility and access that relate to open space and recreation. So to inform the goals that were set in PlanBeverly, the planning department did an extensive community engagement process to receive community feedback on all of the sections the master plan covers, including the open space and environment section, which includes a section on parks and recreation. So while there are connections to other sections of the plan, I'm just going to share with you some of the goals that are set in the open space and environment section of PlanBeverly. So goal A is all about expansion, maintenance, and accessibility. And at the end of PlanBeverly, there's an action plan that details actions that will be taken to accomplish these goals, goal A and the ones moving forward as well. Goal B is all about balancing development needs and natural resources. Goal C is about outreach and education and increasing awareness and stewardship of open spaces and recreation areas. Goal D focuses on climate change preparedness and enhancing Beverly's resilience to the impacts of climate change. And unlike previous open space and recreation plans, the 2022 Open Space and Recreation Plan will include a section describing climate change's impacts on Beverly's open space and recreation resources, and vice versa, how open space and recreation impacts climate change. Goal E is all about waterfront access and increasing public access to the waterfront. So since PlanBeverly was just recently established and the community engagement process was so recently done, we will be using a lot of the data from PlanBeverly for the open space and recreation plan. It will make sense if a lot of the community feedback that we hear for the open space and recreation plan aligns with the goals and feedback that was heard during PlanBeverly. We expect a lot of similarities. With that said, having community engagement opportunities for the open space and recreation plan by itself is still very important. The master plan covered a broad range of topics, and so this allows us to really dial in on one subject matter, open space and recreation. So in addition to the data that we will be using from PlanBeverly, we started the community engagement process for the open space and recreation plan by distributing a community survey that asks questions about how people use open space and recreation and how they could have their experience improved. We have received over 550 online survey responses, and we are also working on distributing translated surveys through the Beverly Public Schools ESL program. So far, for the community survey results, we have seen that people use open space and recreation areas very often, weekly, if not daily. People use open space and recreation areas for a variety of reasons, including all of these mentioned here. And then for other entries recorded, that includes a slew of aerobic exercise, working, as people have began working from home more often. Some people are going to parks and recreation areas to work. And then at least one person mentioned using open space as a way of therapy as they're recovering from a mental illness. We asked what prevents you from visiting parks and open space more often. As we can't do much about weather and people's time constraints and work schedules, we can absolutely focus on this bottom third of the graph here and these reasons. And then we asked, what changes or improvements would you like to see at the open spaces or parks that you visit? We've gotten all sorts of answers, some of which are provided on the slide here. I'll take a second before moving forward. So now, having heard about some of the goals and data found through the PlanBeverly planning process, and after seeing some of the survey results that we've already been receiving, we'd like to use this time now to invite any members of the public here to make comments on the plan, ask questions, give us feedback. You can second any of the ideas you've already seen. You could make new comments. But we do ask that if you'd like to give any feedback, to please go to the podium and state your name for the record. And then also just speak into the microphone for BevCam, as people are watching this from home possibly, and they will be also watching the recording afterwards. So if anyone wants to speak, you're more than welcome to. And actually, I wanted to write this down. Do you mind if I get the microphone, Kim?
Yes. No, I don't mind. Which one do you prefer, the handheld or the?
Handheld's probably easier.
All right.
And by the way, Chelsea, great job on the presentation.
Yeah.
Green.
Hey, if you could just state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is David Cannavale. I live at 208 Dodge Street in Beverly. I've been a lifelong member here in Beverly. And today I'd like to talk to you about pickleball.
Okay.
And I just want to say that 11 years ago, we started playing pickleball in our backyard in North Beverly, and we were the only place in the North Shore to play pickleball. And then 8 years ago, we talked to Bruce and to the mayor, and they graciously let us have temporary courts over at Orbia Park. And we really started on a roll at Orbia Park. And we brought a lot of people into the pickleball. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States. So what happens is now, 8 years later, we're still playing at Orbia Park with temporary nets that we have to actually set up every time we play, break them down after, and put them in a lockbox when we're done. And, oh yeah, by the way, they stole one of our lock boxes with all our equipment in it once. We had to have a fundraiser to get it back again. And so what we're looking for is we're looking for permanent courts somewhere in the city. Since we've been here, well, let's just say this. All the surrounding communities, Marblehead, Peabody, Danvers, Hamilton, Salem, they all have permanent courts now. And they've all seen that pickleball is really a fast-growing sport. And this is a sport that children, parents, and grandparents can all play together. It's a fun sport. So, so that's all. I just wanted to state that and see if we can get some permanent courts someplace in the city.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Got permanent pickleball courts down. Right, courts. Also, I did not major in spelling, and I don't know if that's an A or an E, but it's fine. Probably wrong.
Hi.
If you could just state your name.
I'm Tammy Marciano, 6.5 Mechanic Street, and I'm with the pickleball contingent here, just to speak for the pickleball enrichment committee that we have put together. So we appreciate this opportunity to help prioritize the open space recreation investments for the coming years. According to the trustees of reservations, visitations to parks, beaches, and trails more than doubled during the pandemic, and the trend continues. So we're hoping that future investments might reflect that and be increased. In the 7 years since the last open space and recreation plan was updated, pickleball became the fastest growing outdoor recreational sport in America, growing 21% in 2020. Our mission is to promote community health, social engagement, sportsmanship, and fun through pickleball activities. We wish to enhance, expand, and help create programs and facilities that enable those activities. Why is it so popular? As a combination of ping pong, tennis, and badminton, it's easy to learn but hard to master. It brings people together and builds community. It is great exercise and you can play at your own pace. It's something that younger and older folks can play together. We wish to welcome all levels of players to Beverly and to teach pickleball skills through our recreation enrichment programs. We can only do this by encouraging the city to construct 8 to 16 dedicated pickleball courts. Currently, there are no dedicated pickleball courts in our city, with none slated to be built. Our neighboring communities continue to identify the need by renovating existing tennis courts and constructing new pickleball courts. Revenue is lost to those cities and towns that run clinics, hold tournaments, and teach pickleball through our other recreation departments. Building 16 pickleball courts would bring people from all over to compete in tournaments that will create another revenue stream for local businesses and the city. This year, $750,000 was earmarked to renovate 3 tennis courts and 4 basketball courts using park grants, CPC funds, and the David Lynch Trustees funds, all without identifying the growing need for dedicated pickleball courts in our city. At the same time, Manchester by the Sea, with a small population of 5,100, budgeted $75,000 for new construction. Peabody added more, Salem added new, in the Willows with lights, just to name a few. Most communities like Salem and Peabody don't vote on pickleball in recreation meetings, they just include it in renovations and new construction. In closing, we'd request funding to create new pickleball courts in Beverly and to incorporate pickleball into enrichment programs, new park constructions, and renovations going forward. We thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to add to the conversation or second any comments that have already been mentioned or ask any questions? All right, please. You will need a microphone. Take this.
What's pickleball? Hello.
Name and address, please.
Susan Carnavale, 208 Dodge Street, Beverly. So I want to show you, I want you to find out what this strange little sport is about that is like grass in the country, that has grass in the country. So I brought you a few demos. Of course, all tangled. Right. Can you help me untangle while I talk a little bit? Okay. Yeah, so I brought you some paddles just to feel what a paddle's like.
I feel like Mr. Wonderful right now.
So, the funny thing is, so I am a USA Pickleball ambassador. I've been an ambassador, thank you for helping, for USA Pickleball. It's a volunteer position, probably 10 years. And it's just promoting the love of the sport. It's teaching it to beginners. It's teaching it to youth.
Yep, I did. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Just to get a feel.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's a ball in here.
That's okay.
Here you go. Okay, have fun. So anyway, I've been promoting this sport for years. It's caught on in the other communities we have, and other ambassadors. There's a couple other ambassadors in the room that promote the sport. We have Joe Lyman, who was our district ambassador. We have Jean, who was another ambassador. I am the assistant regional. We promote the sport that we love. This is a healthy sport. This is an amazing sport. You will, if you looked at some of the articles in Pickleball Magazine and the other pickleball magazines, you will see how people talk about pickleball saving their life, putting them back on a healthy track. That's what we want to do. It's for our love of this sport. I had other points, but I have to look at my notes because I got a little carried away with the tangles. So I want to tell you about the history. Do I have to stand over there or can I stand with this?
That's fine.
Thank you. This works for me. This works for me. So anybody know how old pickleball is?
No, how old?
50s? 60 years or 1960? Close. 1965, pickleball was created. It was created on Bainbridge Island, which is an island that is right off Seattle. So there were these fathers and their kids were bored and they developed this additional sport in their yard. And, here we are, that was how many years ago? 56 years ago. So it caught on the West Coast. Eventually, it started making its way to the East Coast. It hit Florida first. So Florida's been in the pickleball, has had the pickleball way of life for probably 20, 30 years. In the East Coast, it's come up a little slower. And it's kind of like COVID. You go somewhere, you catch the disease, and you bring it with you. That's what happened to me. I went to visit a friend of mine in Florida, learned pickleball, came home, and I started painting the lines on my driveway. David was not happy. But, you can't help it. It is an amazing sport. It is so much fun. It touches everyone. I was at a committee here last week, and they were talking about merging two areas, a dog park and a sport. So what a perfect thing. Let's put a dog, I should have said it then, but pickleball is named after the dog that the Pritchett family had. Their dog's name was Pickle, and I guess it's Pickles, and Pickles kept stealing the ball, thus the name. So this sport is not going away. It's an international sport. We have the U.S. Open, we have nationals, we have senior games all over the country, all over the world. It is taking over. And all I needed to do is put a paddle in your hand and ball and you're hooked, but you just got a paddle, you got halfway there. It's not going away. It's wonderful, and it would be such a wonderful asset if this town could embrace pickleball the way the surrounding towns are. The ambassadors have done a great job. The towns surrounding have these permanent courts. We're still kind of in the Flintstone era. We still have it's great. We have to make the nets and stuff and lock them up because of safety and all that. But it would be great if we could have some permanent courts. And I think that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
No one wants to play.
Well, it's part of us.
Thank you.
Okay, and then you get all this enthusiasm.
Now, do you have a spot in mind where you'd like a court?
Oh, I forgot to tell you half of what I was going to say. Sorry. Yes, I do. I'm coming back.
I knew you did.
Yes, sorry. Part two. So another very helpful way another way that pickleball could really help Beverly is by revenue. I am a certified instructor. There are other certified instructors. I am so I teach in the community surrounding here. I just came back from Hamilton. And I teach, I'm also a full-time psychologist, but there's 24 hours in a day, I fit it all in. So I teach in the other communities, and they're getting the income that I would much rather have our own community have versus sending it out to Salem, sending it out to Hamilton, to Peabody. I think at one point in the summer, we had 5 courses going at the same time in Salem. That's a lot of income. I think they charge about $90 a head, times 5-week sessions. Do the math, it's a lot. And that would be great to have for Beverly as well. In terms of location, yes, we've already kind of talked it out a little bit with the mayor. And we were talking about a space near the airport, Birch Park, I believe. Birch Plains, Airplanes Park, Airport. You get the association. Am I good? Yeah. Okay. I'll let you know if I forget something else. Well, O'Bear would be great. It's a beautiful location, but there's a little controversy with, I guess, the 5 people that play tennis versus the average 40 people wait in line to play at O'Bear Park on a given day, when we can have one of the ambassadors that are retired can go and open up the box, make the 4 nets. So Beverly Golf and Tennis is another one as well. And it would, like I said, it would be great to have the permanent courts at O'Bear, but I think we're just like maybe stonewalling or hitting a wall.
May I ask a question? Just
Please,
how many people are there in one pickleball game?
Oh, I love you. So there are 4 people. Generally, we play doubles, 2 on each side, and I should have brought you some flyers. And people can play singles as well, but we teach in doubles, but most people play in doubles. So it's 4 on a court at a time, and 16 people can play at one time, basically, versus 2 or 4 on a tennis court, right? We have 16, because there's 4 courts, say, at O'Bear. So that's 4 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. Sounds like a good money maker to me. That's it. What else? And it's very social, if you haven't noticed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You should add it's really affordable. You don't have to buy a lot of equipment, and it's a really easy game to play.
Absolutely. Very affordable. No. Even the clothes. Yeah, you can get paddles for, probably $20 on Amazon, or you get a battle paddle, whatever. Balls are cheap, it's great. Okay, I'll put my foot away. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else that would like to share thoughts on open space and recreation opportunities?
Yeah.
Any experiences that you have now that you would like to see different or stay the same? Any comments related to conservation, preservation, more recreation opportunities? Yeah, please. And you can go to the podium, yeah.
Hi, my name's Joanne Miller. I'm new to Beverly, relatively new to Beverly. I know we talked about pickleball and how it's becoming more and more popular and it's the fastest growing sport. And I would say the same for dogs and dog owners. And I know it's a very controversial subject here in Beverly, but it would be really nice to see a proper dog park here in Beverly, compared to Danvers has, really beautiful dog park. Gloucester has a stunning dog park, Peabody, and the list goes on. Not sort of part of a forest near the airport, garbage all the time. Dogs deserve better. Dog ownership is way up, particularly in Beverly, and also because of the pandemic. So there really needs to be, that should be on the list as well.
Thank you so much. Dog parks. All right, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Any other comments from anybody? Yeah, please.
I'm Robert Bucksbaum on Bertram Street and an alumnus of the Open Space Committee. So it's just wonderful to see the development over the years, far beyond what we had when I was on the committee. But one of the things I just think about a lot is sort of management of the parks. And I know years ago when a tree fell in Sally Milligan, we could never get it, and it covered a path, closed the path. That I can see where over the 20 or 30 years since that happened, which dates me, how the tree, some people made an adventitious path around it, and it's just starting to grow back what was the original path. But it's nice to hear that there's at least some management going on, but it would be great to see some kind of more dedicated group or funding for managing our open spaces. We do a great job in Lynch Park and Aubert Park, but places like Sally Milligan and Phillip State, for example, sometimes I feel like they're kind of the poor sisters of our open spaces. So it'd be great to see some kind of a management team. And one of the issues that I know I've thought about also in Sally Milligan is the meadow there, which used to be the old Hill property, which when I was part of the committee, we had sort of. And when we got the property, we were supposed to keep that open as a grassland, and now it's totally growing up with sumac, which has its values as well, but there simply was never any way to really manage that in a way that we had all thought might be best, at least at that time. So thinking about how can we get a kind of management for our open spaces, for our green spaces, for our more valuable conservation lands. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was going to say funding for and management of trails and open spaces. All right. Anybody else have any comments you'd like to share or discuss, ask questions about the planning process? We do have one slide after this, just to talk about next steps. But if anyone wants to make any additional comments, please.
Anyone?
All right. Well, right now, and I also want to let people know watching through BevCam and people who watch this recorded later, right now is not the only time to have your thoughts heard. You can always contact me in the planning department and contact any of our open space and recreation committee members with this information. This process is going to be over the next 10 months. So this isn't the only opportunity if you think of anything after you leave here tonight. So now just to talk about next steps in the planning process. After this meeting, the Planning Department and Open Space and Recreation Committee are going to be compiling all the feedback that we received, and we are going to develop the new 7-year action plan in early spring coming up. Oh gosh, coming up. In early spring, similar to how tonight's meeting went, we will have another public feedback period on the new action plan. And then we're going to begin drafting the document, which will include updating new census data, maps, all of the above. Then we'll be reviewing and editing the drafts, which will hopefully get to in mid to late spring, because that's going to take a lot of eyes to make sure it turns into a document that we want it to be. And then finally, we will be submitting the final draft of the Open Space and Recreation Plan in August of 2022. And that's it. So, thank you all so much for being here. This is a great turnout, and I appreciate all of your feedback. We all do. And now we do the survey that we showed some of the data on. That survey is still open, and so you can access the survey through the Open Space and Recreation Committee page on the city's website. And then there's my contact information if you ever want to reach out to me. If you think of something after you leave tonight's meeting, you're welcome to give me a call or email and share your thoughts.
And one thing, if you guys have never had the chance to really read through the Open Space and Recreation Plan that's on the city website, it's really an interesting document. You know, at least the initial first several chapters of it deal a lot with the history of Beverly and the geology, and it's very interesting. You know, really it's kind of gives you a lot of insight and information about the city that we live in. So it's really cool to check it out sometime.
Mm-hmm. If you can't find it on the website, I can send it to you.
There's one other thing that I'd like to add, just so that everybody understands. The Open Space and Recreation Committee is an advisory committee, so we don't have any authority and we don't have any budget. So we've worked really hard to try to look out for the interests of the people of Beverly in terms of, you know, getting access and, you know, making sure that encroachments are taken care of and building trails and, you know, we personally do some maintenance out there, but we're strictly volunteer. And so what we're able to accomplish is what we're able to do ourselves, basically. So it would be great, and to Robert's point, it would be great if there was a budget at some point where we could start addressing some of these things. But anything that takes money, you really sort of need to go to another department in the city of Beverly to advocate for that. So, but we like to help and advocate.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to add that for people.
Good point. Any other committee members want to add anything? Is that it?
No.
All right. That will conclude the presentation portion of this meeting then. We're going to continue with the rest of our committee agenda. We might convene at a smaller table. That portion is not going to be recorded on BevCam, but is open to the public, so you're welcome to stay. But have a great night, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.